Hello, and welcome to Catching Up with the Clemenses, brought to you by the Mark Twain House and Museum in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm Erin, and I coordinate school programs at the house.
And I'm Jody. I care for the museum's collections. In our last episode, we asked you how all these plants were so green and beautiful, even in the winter. This room is called the conservatory, and today we're going to explore the history and science of places like this.
In our episode on the fruits and flowers that the family enjoyed, we talked about the gardens here at the house. It's the end of March in Connecticut, so there's not much happening above ground in our gardens at the moment. But we also talked about the greenhouse that used to be here on the lawn, where the family's gardener, John O'Neill, grew lots of plants they could bring into the main house when they were getting ready to bloom. But why build a special part of the main house like a conservatory just for plants? Why not put them in the greenhouse? Or just in a pot by one of the windows of the house?
One reason is so that you can have tropical or semi-tropical plants, especially ones that usually grow in places much closer to the equator than we are here. These plants need a lot of heat and moisture to be happy. And while summers in Connecticut can be very hot and humid, the winters are very cold and the air is very dry. Many houseplants can flourish in a warm home with some sunlight and water, like this amaryllis. But plants you'd put in the conservatory need more. Conservatories and greenhouses work by capturing the heat of the sun's rays, even when it's cold outside. The sun can pass through the glass and it heats up everything inside, the ground, the plants, and the pots. The heat that radiates off of these objects remains trapped within the space, keeping it nice and warm. Often these spaces have windows that open in case it gets too hot in the summer.
So what's the difference between a conservatory and a greenhouse, other than that one is attached to the house and the other stands free? In the time the Clemenses lived here, the main difference was that the plants in the conservatory were often planted directly in the ground. In the greenhouse, a gardener might be starting seedlings in trays to be planted in the outside garden, or growing plants in pots that could be placed on the porch during the summer. Not only were the conservatory plants placed directly in the ground, they were also plants that tended to live for years, rather than just for the summer, like many of the plants in the garden.
This meant when the Theclemens family went away for the summer to visit family, or even on a trip to Europe for a year, someone had to take care of the plants in the conservatory. Often that person was the family's coachman, Patrick, or the family's gardener, John. When leaving for Europe on a long trip, Sam wrote to a friend to let him know how his home would be taken care of in his absence. He said, "The coachman and family will stand guard at the stable with the horses." He also noted that he had hired somebody to keep the conservatory blooming and the hanging flower baskets flourishing in the balconies. The same is true today. We have master gardeners from the University of Connecticut come in to care for the plants in our conservatory, even when the museum is closed to the public, just to make sure everything stays green and healthy. Many of the plants we have in here today are plants that the Clemenses had when they lived here, even if they aren't the same plants exactly. How do you think we figured out what plants the Clemenses had in the past? And what kinds of historical documents would you investigate?
We use a lot of different sources to learn about the past in the house. In previous episodes, we've talked about the memoirs written by family members and the people who worked here, as well as letters written by people who visited. Those were useful in reconstructing the conservatory, but we needed to look deeper. We used photographs of the house from the time, Sam Clemens's notebooks, old receipts from the nurseries where they purchased plants, and even newspaper articles. Sam was very famous after all, so when reporters would visit him here, they'd often write about what his house was like, including the conservatory. We know there were cast iron brackets to hold pots on either side of the doorway. These ones right here. This is a goldfish plant, something we know the Theclemens family had growing in the conservatory. It has really cool orange flowers that look like fish. Other plants we have in here that we know the family had include spider plants, ferns, clivia, wax plants, and night-blooming cereus. Around the plants in the ground lay a bed of white marble chips and a fountain just like this one. One special plant is the one you see here, climbing up the walls. It's a creeping fig, and it's descended from the original plant that grew here when the Clemenses lived in this house.
Nowadays, most of our plants are in pots, mostly for ease of care. While most of the plants in the conservatory would live here all year round, John would also cultivate flowers in pots out in the greenhouse, including primroses, one of Lily Clemens' favorites, and then bring them in here when they're about ready to bloom. This one here is a young creeping fig. It's grown from a clipping of the big fig here in the conservatory. Growing a plant like this is a challenge and takes a lot of hard work and a lot of care. I know, because I grew this one just last year.
Conservatories were pretty popular in this neighborhood when the Clemens family lived here. You can even see one on the house across the way from us. One of the biggest supporters of conservatories in this neighborhood was the Clemens' next-door neighbor, Harriet Beecher Stowe. She and her sister Catherine wrote a lot about how to design and run a home, and they included conservatories in the floor plans that they drew. One of the family's closest friends, William Dean Howells, wrote about the Clemens Conservatory in his memoir, My Mark Twain.
The west was a little semicircular conservatory of a pattern invented by Mrs. Harriet Beecher Stowe and adapted in most of the houses in the neighborhood. The plants were set in the ground, and the flowering vines climbed up the sides and overhung the roof above a silent spray of a fountain accompanied by callas and other water-loving lilies. There, while we breakfasted, Patrick came in from the barn and sprinkled the pretty bower, which poured out its responsive perfume in the delicate accents of its varied blossoms.
Harriet also thought it was just really good to have plants in your home in whatever way possible, even if you couldn't have a conservatory. She thought they were important for keeping people happy, which sort of makes sense if you think about what it looks like outside right now. But she also thought they could provide important education for children who could help with gardening work even when the outdoor gardens were asleep for the winter. Do you have any plants in your home? If so, whose job is it to water them and take care of them?
Now, we don't know if the Theclemens girls learned how to garden in the conservatory as Harriet wanted, but we know they loved to play in here. They called it the jungle and liked to play safari with their father and George, the family's butler, with them down on their hands and knees pretending to be lions and tigers and elephants. But a conservatory was also a place for animals. Libby Clemens' family had pet birds, and Sam noted that the bird cages were hung from the conservatory in their home in Elmira, New York. After the Clemenses moved out of this home, a family named the Bissells lived here. They kept the conservatory, and one of their sons kept a pet alligator here. In this episode, we talked about conservatories and how they worked. In the next episode, we're going to focus on this machine, the Page Compositor. Between now and then, can you figure out what this was used for? See you next time.
Do you have a question for us? You can send us an email at catchingup@marktwainhouse.org or send us a letter at the Mark Twain House and Museum, 351 Farmington Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut, 06105. Along with your question, tell us your first name, your age, and what city or town you live in. If we feature your question in a future video, we'll be sure to give you a shout out. Don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.
We want to keep our educational materials accessible to all, but while these videos are free for you, they're not free for us. If you want to support the creation of Catching Up with the Clemens' videos and other educational programming here at the Mark Twain House Museum, please follow the link in the description below to donate now.